So for anyone out there who's a job seeker, navigating platforms like Indeed and LinkedIn, you know how overwhelming the sheer volume of applications can be. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating experiment. Using AI browser assistants, specifically the Comet browser, to radically automate the job application process. We're looking at an experience designed to see how feasible it is and how you can configure these tools to maximize your output.
And that brings us to our central question. Does this kind of highly structured automation, aiming for something like 80% autonomy, does that represent a real strategic advantage in today's job market? Or does this template-driven approach sacrifice the personalization and, frankly, the strategic control you need to land those high-value roles?
I'm going to argue that this automation, when it's configured with real rigor and precision, is absolutely essential. It's what you need to achieve the necessary volume, and critically, it lets you focus your energy on that top 20% of opportunities that really matter.
And I'll be taking the opposing view. I think the inherent limitations, the rigidity of these automated templates, even with safety rules in place, ultimately undermines the quality of your outreach. It just introduces unavoidable risks when you're trying to navigate any kind of real-world complexity.
My core thesis is that the Comet automation framework, it provides a mechanism for maximizing outreach volume without sacrificing coherence. But, and this is a big but, it only works if the candidate does the prep work. The source material is really clear on this. You have to construct a rigorous, detailed candidate profile document within the assistant first.
Okay.
And this profile isn't just, a data dump. It has to be meticulously structured, often using markdown headers so the AI can parse it easily and accurately. That structure is really the engine of quality control here.
So when you talk about quality, you're focusing on the input. But what does that structured input actually look like? I mean, how does it translate into an automated output that's genuinely high quality?
That's a great question. The quality, it really lies in the required depth of content. This profile mandates that you include several key professional experiences, and crucially, each one has to be detailed with 3 bullet points emphasizing measurable impact. We're not talking about simple duties. We're talking about evidence. Things like increased e-commerce revenue by 40% or reduced onboarding time by 25%. This ensures that even the automated submissions are built on these high-quality, pre-vetted, evidence-based claims. And on top of that, the candidate prepares multiple versions of short pitches, say a general one for e-commerce, another for tech, so the automated response is already contextually relevant.
I find that emphasis on structured preparation quite compelling. I do. However, even with a strong candidate profile relying on 80% automated execution, it just introduces a rigidity that poses significant strategic risks. The source material itself highlights this fragility through a pretty explicit constraint.
And what constraint is that?
The job seeker, the person running this experiment, explicitly noted their strategy was to avoid applying to any offers that required them to leave Indeed or LinkedIn. The reason? The process, and I'm quoting here, becomes too complicated for the assistant when it's an external company portal. I mean, that is a fundamental constraint. It proves the system just can't handle real-world application diversity. The most strategic, often highest-value roles are frequently on those very pages.
I'd say that's a tactical decision to maximize throughput within the tool's parameters, not indictment of its core utility. The goal is scale on the high-volume platforms.
But scale through rigidity risks generic responses. I mean, look at the reliance on generic models for the free text fields. The setup requires defining standard answers for tough questions like, 2 or 3 pre-canned responses for salary expectations or using a standard cover letter template. And even if the assistant can inject the company name, this material risks sounding completely impersonal. The system is just assuming a macro, like standard application, can perfectly detect all the form labels, name, email, CV, and inject data coherently across wildly different forms. That process is just fundamentally prone to subtle, coherence-breaking errors without constant human validation.
And that brings us right to the core conflict, doesn't it? The necessary volume versus the desirable level of customization. In today's market, success is often defined by your ability to target and submit applications rapidly. The routine itself isn't blind. It builds in conditional rules. For instance, the system is set up to signal a conflict, to pause if a job description requires 100% in-person attendance while your profile says you prefer remote. This mechanism ensures critical mismatches are caught before you hit submit.
I just question the long-term effectiveness of that, of maximizing the volume of minimally personalized applications. If your outreach relies on a template that only adapts the job title and the company name, the sheer volume of it risks causing significant recruiter fatigue.
I understand the concern about the signal-to-noise ratio, but let me reframe the benefit. This configuration turns 80% of the mechanical, repetitive application process, which used to take hours, into what? A 2-second validation task? It massively optimizes the candidate's time for the truly strategic jobs. The persuasive content, those measurable impact bullets, that's all been front-loaded into the profile. We're separating the strategic content creation from the mechanical execution.
That defensive preparation holds up, yes, but only if the execution weren't so rigid. The strategic element you're praising, that deep customization, it requires granular control. For example, tailoring a CV to match keywords in a specific job description. The material shows the candidate has to remember to specify this manually every single time, or create a bunch of specialized CVs beforehand. So the automation only speeds up the tedious part. It's not a strategic content creator in the moment. If 80% of your output is template-driven, you risk relying on a baseline of mediocrity, even if the underlying profile is strong.
But the goal is to eliminate the cognitive burden of the identical, repetitive fields name, contact info, employment dates that are the same across 100 applications. That is the function of the automated 80%. The candidate's job is to then focus on that 20% where deep CV customization and targeted networking become the priority. The automation provides the time dividend needed for those high-value tasks.
Okay, so let's pivot the discussion to control and safety, because the need for these explicit safety rules really reveals the system's underlying lack of agency. The user had to build in rules like always list consent boxes before checking them, and, crucially, pause for my validation on offers exceeding 50,000 euros, that threshold for high-stakes salary decisions. These rules just confirm that the system is fundamentally untrustworthy for critical decisions, privacy consent, high-value financial expectations, without manual human intervention. It really waters down the claim of autonomy.
I would argue the opposite. The fact that these sophisticated safety rules can be added and enforced demonstrates the power and configurability of the tool, not its failure. The user sets the precise boundaries and the browser adheres to them. It waits for validation exactly when the stakes are highest. This configuration allows the system to be precise. It can signal non-equivalent fields or offer tailored answers for open questions, ensuring compliance, especially around things like GDPR, while maintaining incredible speed.
But the need for those checkpoints just confirms that the automation is a speedy data filler, not a reliable decision maker. It accelerates the input, but it still needs a human veto for the output quality.
But consider the conditional logic for document management. The instruction is explicit. For each form that requires a CV, load this file, unless a CV is already present and dates from less than X days. I mean, that level of sophisticated, built-in logic minimizes repetition and errors. It ensures that correct, updated CV is used without constant micromanagement. That's more than just speed. That's intelligent asset management.
Well, that logic for managing files is impressive. I'll grant you that. But the strategic burden of preparation remains intense and totally human-driven. The source material says that the customized CV has to be prepared prior to the automated session, tailored to the search query. The automation is just the conduit. It is a time saver for form submission, absolutely, but it doesn't create strategic content, and it certainly doesn't guarantee a strategic fit in complex scenarios.
And yet, this minimization of mechanical friction provides a clear tactical advantage that translates to strategic depth. By creating a shortcut like candidate profile with the instruction, use this information to fill out any application form without asking me for the basics again, the candidate dramatically minimizes the cognitive load on those repetitive tasks. This frees up the mental resources needed for that high-value 20% of applications where deep research and personalization are warranted. It allows for much greater strategic depth where it actually matters.
I'm just not convinced by that line of reasoning, because a truly effective job search has to navigate complexity.
Limiting the scope to only the easiest 80% confines the search to the most common and often most competitive channels. The fact that the assistant only works well inside Indeed or LinkedIn, as the source confirms, suggests this process actively limits a candidate's reach. The most strategic, high-return opportunities often involve those less standardized application processes that the assistant finds too complicated.
For a large segment of the job market where quantity is a key factor in landing that first interview, maximizing volume on the most active platforms is just sound tactical advice. It provides the statistical probability you need to secure those initial calls.
But a strategy that ignores complexity, that is explicitly forced to avoid it, can't be considered comprehensive strategic oversight. It's just a high-speed filter. By missing opportunities that require navigating a different corporate portal, you are sacrificing potential high-return roles for a volume that frankly risks mediocrity. The tactical speed is clear, but the strategic limitation is just as unavoidable.
Ultimately, tools like Comet are fundamentally redefining efficiency in job seeking. They succeed by centralizing data, enforcing structured communication, like those impact bullets and pitch versions, and managing the mechanical execution of applications according to strict user-defined safety rules. The control resides with the candidate who built and configured this powerful system, allowing them to scale their efforts and free themselves from the drudgery.
And while the automation is undeniably impressive, the system's explicit limitations, especially its inability to handle processes outside major platforms, reveal that this is a powerful tactical tool for speed, but it is not a comprehensive strategic framework. Candidates must remain acutely vigilant about personalization, ensuring they perform strategic customization, and they have to remain vigilant about security, never fully trusting the assistant's handling of nuanced, high-stakes questions.
The material clearly shows a tension between the undeniable need to scale outreach in a competitive market and at the same time the requirement to maintain meticulous control and quality where it really counts. It's an open question where that boundary between trusted automation and necessary human oversight must be drawn.
Indeed. And this fundamental tension proves that integrating AI into complex, high-stakes processes like job seeking requires a continuous, conscious evaluation of the trade-off between velocity and strategic integrity.
We encourage you to continue exploring these complex topics within your material. You've been listening to The Debate on Lee Podcast to Philip. Help us to reach 2,000 subscribers and share our podcast.